This is the Floridaville. Get to know the people behind the Florida names you know. I'm your host, Rosanna Catalano. On this episode, we get to know Kristie Harris, Associate Vice President of Financial Affairs at the University of Central Florida. She joined UCF after the university had issues with state regulators. She tells us what she had to do as a leader to rebuild the relationships within her organization and outside the university campus. She also shares with us what is on the horizon for higher education. We are excited to be recording today's episode on live video stream to the Floridaville page on Facebook and the Floridaville channel on YouTube. I'm in my home office in Tallahassee, and Kristie is speaking with us remotely from her home in Orlando. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rosanna. I'm so excited. So thank you so much for inviting me on your show.
Well, we are so happy to have you. You are the Associate Vice President of Financial Affairs at UCF, as I stated earlier. Can you describe your job for us?
Absolutely. I started at UCF back in August, and I have to say it has been a rewarding experience for me. I currently oversee a division of finance. So, I have a chief financial officer that is also my supervisor, but I pretty much oversee general accounting. I oversee the budget office, purchasing, travel, vendors payables, things of that nature. But I have to say, most of my job is associated with just being a strategic advisor for leadership, whether it's for the chief financial officer or the provost of the institution. Not only that, I still have a lot of dealings with the state university system of Florida, Board of Governors. That is a place I worked with and worked for 13 years. And so I'm constantly interpreting new statutes, regulations, making sure that we're staying financially solvent and making sure that we're being fiscal stewards for taxpayers' dollars. And so I have to say my most rewarding experience about my job is just working with the number of people that I work with at UCF, as well as folks throughout the system. But my job has been exciting. When I first started, there was a lot of getting used to things because UCF is a very, very large institution. And you have so many students, so many faculty and staff all have the same passion about things, dealing with higher education. So I actually had to come in and just kind of listen to all the concerns that campus stakeholders had. And just being that voice and just making sure that we're providing good guidance and direction for our students as a whole, for the campus as a whole. So it's been just a rewarding experience and have not made the year yet, but I am looking forward to more times at this wonderful institution that I work for. So thank you for asking about UCF and what I do there.
That's wonderful to hear. I'm glad you're enjoying it there. Now, before your arrival, there was a state audit in 2018 that led to some issues for UCF at the state level. How do you come into a position like yours as a leader and rebuild the relationships within the organization among staff and outside the university campus?
Well, again, it's about listening to the concerns and just making sure that when you come in, you have all eyes on what is important. And I think the most important here is just building that trust and showing that you have credibility and integrity in what you do. Before UCF, I worked at the State University System of Florida, where I dealt with a lot of other universities in the system. So I pretty much knew all the compliance laws and everything that we needed to do to make sure we make those right decisions. And so I think at UCF, I was able to bring my expertise on what it was that we needed to do to make sure that we get it right and move it forward. But just being that leader and being that voice for the people that I oversee, as well as just paying attention to what others are saying and taking all of that very, very great information and making those decisions, being one of those other people, being part of that group of folks that sit down and just say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is the best for the institution, and just being that voice. That is important.
I know you're the chair. You and I had spoken earlier that you're the chair of the Budget Redesign Initiative. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, that is a very, very exciting project that that the university is currently, trying to implement. But basically, it's a model that we're trying to implement that focuses on fiscal accountability. How are we managing our resources and allocating our resources, but at the same time, providing that transparency and clear financial information to our board, to our campus stakeholders that's important for them to have as they make those key decisions. So we started with this work back in the fall, I would say around October. And this, even though we've done a wealth of work, within the last 8 to 9 months, the second year is coming up and we still have a lot of work to go in putting this together. That was part of what I did when I arrived, Rosanna. It's about understanding some of the things that we really need to focus on and kind of improve. And it was all about just building that transparency, being able to provide information to key stakeholders so they can better understand the fiscal position of our institution. And so this model actually gets us there. It hopefully will be able to bring transformational change that will impact the university's culture and the way that we conduct business. So again, I'm looking forward to it. It's a lot of work ahead, but I've worked with a group of really wonderful people that have been instrumental in helping us move this project along. So thank you for asking about that project. It's a great thing that's going on right now.
It sounds like some really great things are on the horizon for you all. I know in any large organization like UCF, it's wise to implement checks and balances with regards to finances to prevent fraud and misuse of funds. What advice would you give to a business owner operating on a smaller scale to prevent fraud and abuse?
That's a really good question. Very good question. I think the first thing I would say is you really have to watch the bottom line. Watch your finances. A lot of times when you have businesses, you have that one person that keeps the books. And that's a great strategy. I'm not kicking against that. But sometimes it's best to kind of sit down and say, okay, where are we? Where are we at financially? How are those revenues looking? What are those expenses? Are we cutting costs? What are we doing to make sure that that bottom line, that net revenue margin stays in the black and not the red? Because of course, when you have numbers that are in the red, you're a little bit maybe in trouble a little bit. But it's about keeping your eyes on your resources. And again, I understand the need to have staff. I understand the need to delegate that type of direction. But I think it's important for any business owner to keep their eyes on their resources and making sure they understand the financials of their own business.
That's great advice. We're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break and we'll come back and talk to you some more.
Thank you.
This episode of The Floridaville is brought to you by Rocket Ship Consultants. Let us help you launch your career, your business, your podcast, or your live stream. Follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and visit our website at www.rocketshipconsultants.com.
So, Kristie, I wanted to ask you, you've spent most of your professional life working in higher education. Why did that line of work interest you?
It started back when I started working at Florida State University. And before that time, I worked at the Leon County Board of County Commissioners. And so I saw this position that I thought would be great for me. It was in the Office of Treasury Management and Financial Reporting at Florida State. And so I decided to apply for it. After a lengthy interview, I received it. But I think the most important thing for me is when I arrived on campus, I saw the students and I saw how passionate they were about where they were at Florida State, the Seminoles, go Seminoles. And so that just resonated with me. I at that time when I was employed there, you had the long lines. Nothing really got done online. Students stood in line for their financial aid. They stood in line for registering, whatever it took for them to get what they needed. And so I would pass by these students and I just would see the excitement, the drive, the motivation to get what they needed so they can get their classes or get their financial aid. And so that just set in me. So I was like, wow, higher education is what I like. And I have been in higher education for 17 years, since 2002, I believe. So it's been wonderful. And so after that, I started at the state university system, Board of Governors, and I worked there for 13 years. And it gave me an opportunity to work with not just Florida State on issues concerning Florida State, but all the other universities in the system. I'm not getting out of this industry. I love it. So that's how I fell into higher education.
That's fantastic. On this show, we talk to people and we learn their life story. So as a child, where did you call home?
I grew up in Georgia in a very small town about 45 miles north of Tallahassee, Florida. And I'm going to pronounce where I came from. And I guarantee you may not even know where this is, but it's pronounced Attapogus, Georgia. And it's at that time, I believe it was about 800 people. So again, about 45 miles north of Tallahassee, close to Bainbridge, Georgia, close to Thomasville, Georgia. And that is where I grew up. So I am a country girl and I wouldn't change anything about it.
So I've lived in this area about 2 decades now, and I have never heard of your town. Well, I was like, she can't fool me. What's she going to say? I'm going to know it. Nope, I've never heard of it.
No, you've never heard of this town, but it's been, I have not been there in a long time, but I wouldn't change anything about it. I grew up in a very small town, and 800 people is a very small town. But I went to high school in Bainbridge, Georgia. And again, we weren't totally disconnected from the semi-city life. Tallahassee was down the road. But for the most part, yes, I grew up around a lot of woods.
And how would you change it? How would you describe your home life growing up? Do you have siblings?
Actually, I'm the youngest of 4. And I do have a brother in Georgia. Him and his family lives in Georgia. And my 2 oldest siblings, they are deceased. Now it's just me and my brother, and my parents are deceased as well. We grew up singing gospel music. And so I was more of a background singer, but my sister and my mother and my dad, they did most of the leading singing. So I started singing gospel at 5 years old. And please don't ask me to do a tune. I would not do that.
That was coming next. That was coming next.
I absolutely will not do, because I was never a lead singer. I was more of they put me in the background, of course. But that's my childhood memory, just, going from churches to churches and singing gospel with my family. And I did that for up till about 18 and until I went off to college. But yes, a childhood memory of mine that always stays within me. So, yeah.
So you've spent most of your professional life in education and numbers, right? You've been in finance. So everyone wants to know, did you like school when you were a kid? And more importantly, did you like math?
I loved math. And in fact, I excelled very well in math. And I believe it really boils down to my father, how he used to call me at the kitchen table and ask me to help itemize the bills. And I started doing that when I was like 8 years old. And it's a fun story to tell, and I'm not going to go into it here. But when I was a young kid, that every month he would do that. So I would sit at the kitchen table with him, and he would tell me to write numbers down and give me a big number to allocate to the various services we needed to support within the household. And I think about that a lot, because now I'm doing the same thing at an institution, the first to the second largest institution in the country. And so I really do believe just my upbringing as a kid and my parents instilling in me that obviously with it, what any parent would do, get your education, be mindful of how you spend money, things like that my dad used to just tell me about quite a bit. And so I think all of that just kind of factored into where I'm at now. If he was here today, I would just thank him tremendously for putting this type of career in my heart, because I love it. I love doing what I do. It's been wonderful.
I'm sure he'd be
for so long.
I'm sure he'd be so proud to know, yes, that those moments at the kitchen table have led to your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
it's a childhood memory I would never forget.
So you've professed your fate, your love, I should say, to FSU and the Seminoles. So I know
Seminole, yeah.
I know you went to college there. Tell us what your major was.
I majored in finance and I received a master's in public administration. Finance degree is something that I've taken and I've applied it to my career for the last 17 to 20 years. Even before higher education, I worked in the Leon County Board of County Commissioners in the budget office. And so really my love for numbers started there. But once I got into education, higher education, it just really blossomed for me. Love the industry. I love what I do. And the fascinating thing about higher education, obviously, Rosanna, is that you have the finance piece, but you have so many other enterprises within higher ed, whether it's the academic enterprise or the facilities enterprise, administration, HR, those types of areas. There's never a boring moment when you work at a higher educational institution, especially at the University of Central Florida.
So you mentioned that you worked in Leon County. Was that your first job when you were done with all of your schooling?
Yes. And during the time I worked at the Leon County Board of County Commissioners, I was getting my master's as well. And so I would say, I tell everyone this, that I really didn't tap into my career until I started in higher education, even though I had a remarkable time working in other state agencies as I went to school. But it's the love that I have for higher ed. And so once I started at Florida State, I was completely done with any other idea of going somewhere else and working in another area. So higher education has been it for me.
Well, it looks like we have some comments that some folks are expressing also their love for the Seminoles too during our podcast.
Go Noles, but you know what? Go Knights.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you talked about working at the state university system, the Board of Governors, and you worked there for more than a decade. For people unfamiliar with the Board of Governors, can you explain what they do and what positions you held there?
Absolutely. You know, the Board of Governors is a governing body. It's a regulatory governing body. The primary mission of the Board of Governors is to help regulate the state universities within the state of Florida. So you have 12 institutions in different areas, of course. UF is one. I know you're a Gator, so UF is one. But yes, the primary purpose is that this organization regulates each institution. And so it's whether it's providing financial guidance on academics, student affairs, things of that nature. I worked there as a budget director for 10 years. And that is where my love really grew for higher education, because you're not just working for one institution, you're working for 12. And so they have various missions. They have a number of visions. UF may offer something totally different than Florida International University. And so just having all of these universities with different goals and objectives of how they want to educate their students is just a remarkable career. And so during my time there, I met a lot of my colleagues and counterparts just by working with them at various institutions. So the Board of Governors, there's an administrative office where there's a chancellor, sort of a CEO. His name is Marshall Kreiser, a wonderful leader for the system. And then there's various offices within the board. And the primary purpose of those offices is obviously to help manage and direct the state universities within the system.
So I know you worked for a time at New College, and now you're working obviously at UCF. The size of these institutions is very different. New College has, I think it's 1,000 undergrads, and UCF has about 60,000.
Well, actually, New College is a little smaller than that. It's,
okay.
I think the enrollment now is maybe between 600 and 700, and UCF between 68 and 70,000.
Wow.
And so, yes, it was a big difference. But I think the most remarkable thing about both of these institutions, Rosanna, is that they're both so different. And it's in such a great way. New College, Sarasota, they're on the Gulf, and they're a liberal arts institution. And so the folks there are remarkable. They're doing great things at New College. It's that liberal arts flavor that they provide their students. Obviously UCF is more metropolitan research institution, a bigger playground. We have athletics. We have a medical school, definitely a larger enterprise. And so when I started at UCF, the one thing that really helped me out a lot was the folks that said, okay, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about this institution. It's a huge institution. Get ready and learn. And so I did that, and just working with fabulous people there gave me the ease of mind to know, A, that I'm in the right place, but also B, we've got some work to do and we're doing it. And so I'm proud of working there and being a part of this new wave of leadership and what we provide our students.
So I know this spring, Florida universities were closed and moved to online learning as a result of the coronavirus, and we've all been home. So the state's now on a path to reopen, and it looks like universities will reopen in the fall, although I know things are changing literally every day. So from a financial standpoint, can you tell us how the closures affected university revenues?
Yes, there was some loss of revenues, especially with our business type units, our auxiliaries, our bookstores, our parking, because you don't have those students there to help support those enterprises. But we've done remarkable with trying to manage that, Rosanna. We really have. And we have a number of meetings throughout the system, not just with folks at UCF, but other universities. There's different groups of people that get together to talk about what are the challenges that we're facing. How do we manage this? How do we manage that? How do we manage that loss of revenues that we have? But, at the end of the day, it's about good financial management. You have to know the problems that you're facing. And then once you really tune in to the problems and understand what is it that's causing the dip, then you have to immediately start thinking about a solution. How do we solve this? And so back in March, when this pandemic really started getting a lot of attention, we started thinking then. I mean, you don't start thinking about things you need to do at that very moment that this thing is in front of you. You start planning as early as possible. And so we kind of thought that we would have a little bit of downfall in revenues, but we were able to manage it and able to identify those extreme problematic areas and making sure that we fill those holes with other resources that we may have available. It wasn't just a UCF issue. It was also issues that other universities had within the system. So we kind of said, okay, we work with each other, we get ideas from one another, and that has just been a great relationship that we've all been able to establish system-wide. That's why it's so important to have that connection with the other universities in the system. It's a great system. They don't have a problem sharing their ideas with each other. It's just been remarkable. So we're ready for the upcoming fall. We're taking a lot of actions and precautionary measures to make sure that our students are going to be safe this upcoming fall.
Well, it sounds like you have lots of great relationships at the other universities that really come in handy. And I'm sure your time at the Board of Governors was helpful to that. So that's wonderful. Yes. No one creates a new program on a university campus until the budget exists for it. Mm-hmm. So as a result, you and colleagues like yourself across the country get to see the innovative programs on the horizons for higher education. What should the rest of us be on the lookout for on college campuses in the future?
My answer would be different before March. But now that we are under this virus, I would say that online education is going to be on the top. You have a lot of universities, and I'm talking nationally, that are having to teach their kids online remote learning. And it's no different here. So those are the things that we're going to have to really start focusing on and advancing. The great thing about UCF is that we already have an online program established. It's a remarkable program that's been in the works for years. We're happy about that. We're expanding in those efforts. I would have to say, even before March, my tone to that would have changed, would be a little different, because I would say that we would have to put more energy and effort into our deferred maintenance, fixing up our facilities and making sure the water is on and the lights are on and getting that state support that's crucial for keeping those service deliveries going. Also, keeping our enrollment up. That's very, very important. It's not a problem for UCF, but it is a problem for other institutions that may be having a problem in those areas. But now we're kind of in a different fight. And so I think the most important thing is keeping our students safe, giving them the comfort level that they need, and their parents, as well as faculty and staff, that we're doing everything that we possibly can do to make sure that they feel comfortable and that they are safe in the fall, whether it's providing masks, whether it's providing a number of hand sanitizing stations throughout the campus, making sure we're able to generate the resources to take care of those efforts. And so it's a different ball game, but it's somewhat the same. And we're doing a lot of work right now. And I give kudos to folks, boots on the grounds, for everything that they're doing to make sure that our campus is ready to go in the fall. So I would say, higher education is going to change a little bit because of this virus. If we all work together and collaborate, I think we'll be fine. We'll be just fine.
So we like to end our show with a little fun by asking all of our guests the same 7 questions. So what would people be surprised to know about you?
That I'm a couch potato. I don't like to go out that much. A nice dinner at home and relaxing, that's heaven to me. Hey, that's what I like to do. So, yes.
When you have guests in town, where is your favorite place to take them?
I've only been in Orlando for about 10 months, and I'm still learning the area, but Winter Park is very nice. They have a lot of nice restaurants. Mills Park, I believe, is very nice. And so I actually haven't had a lot of guests, because I really was going to start doing that once I was settled, and then bam, the virus hit. And so all of my friends were exercising, social distancing, my family. So no one has really come to visit. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity. Hopefully the pandemic will not last very long and we can get back to really trying to make some plans to see each other. But I have so many friends waiting to come and visit.
Amen to that. So what is the name of a book you recently read that you could not put down, or the name of a show you enjoyed binge watching?
Well, actually, a friend of mine just sent me the name of a book, and it's about, and don't quote me on this, and I should know this, but it's about women being happier. And I think the author's name is Valerie Morton, but don't quote me on that. And I just received it in the mail. She actually sent me 2 books from this author. With me being on vacation, I wanted to read a really good book, and anything on happiness during this time, I think is a great thing for anyone. To just kind of not get into that depressive mode and just read some good and uplifting things instead of just focusing on the news all the time. So I'm trying to do that. As far as my show, I try not to watch too much television, but when I want to just kind of ease and laugh a little bit, I'll tune into Family Feud. Steve Harvey is great. I just, he's funny, and I'll watch him until I've laughed enough, and then I'll turn the TV off.
That show is so fun. So, yes. Among your close family and friends, what are you best known for?
I would say an advisor. For some people tend to want to come and talk to me about things that they're wanting to do, whether it's business move or focusing on a particular career. And so I love to talk and give advice and just kind of talk about my career and what are the things that I've done in my my career track to help me. And believe it or not, I used to be extremely afraid to speak publicly. But what helped me was when I was in grad school, we had no other choice but to get up and make presentations. I was thinking, maybe I can give some advice on public speaking. I try to give those little various career tips, advices to people about, things that they can do to kind of help promote their true skill set and abilities. And so I think people would see me as that, an advisor, someone that they can come to and just kind of, bounce things off.
If you have a nickname, who gave it to you?
Well, I don't have a nickname. My dad used to call me Lenny, but that's part of my middle name. But, let's just say if I have a nickname, I don't know it.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
Bungee jumping. I've
What
always wanted to do that?
What are the top 3 things you love about living in Florida?
The weather, even though it's about, lately it's been about 95 to 100 degrees here in Orlando. The weather, the theme parks. I am a theme park person. I love theme parks. And the fact that I live centrally, and so I'm able to get home to Tallahassee or Georgia. But also, if I want to have a little bit of fun and get out of my box a little bit, I can drive to Jacksonville or Tampa or Miami to visit friends. And that was the old days. Now we can't do that. But once all of this gets out of the way, we'll be able to have those visits and a bit more fun.
Kristie, I'm so glad we've had the opportunity to get together and do this finally. I'm so happy. So it was so great speaking with you today.
Well, this is my first time doing something like this. I was a little nervous, and so I appreciate the opportunity. This has been a remarkable experience. I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast channel on YouTube and all your favorite podcasting listening platforms. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Visit our website to see some extras on Kristie and get her contact information. Our live stream director for this episode and audio editor for this podcast episode is Joy Tootle with Rocket Ship Consultants. If you're interested in starting a live stream or podcast, contact Joy at rocketshipconsultants.com. Thanks for listening.